I have come to you from the year 1947. And if it's 1947, that means what really big thing happened 2 years ago? The end of World War II. Hopefully you know that the years of U.S. involvement in World War II were from 1941 to 45. So that was during my teenage growing up years. I was born in 1927. My name is Geneva Howard, but I just got married this year, 1947, so now I'm Geneva Duke, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. I am from Holly Pond. I'm a member at Oak Level Baptist Church, and I want to tell you I love my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and that's something very important I want you to take with you. When I was a kid, we rode a horse and buggy to church. And then later on, it was mules and wagons. Now, I lived on a farm, and we had chickens. I helped pick strawberries and pick cotton and shuck corn. And so, as I said, I went to Holly Pond High School, and we did not have, so the war was going on during my growing up years. We did not have a telephone. We did not have a television. So I really, the war was kind of a distant thing for me, except that my high school, my senior class was very small because and it was mostly girls, because when the boys turned 18, most of them were drafted and went off into the military. So it was a very small class, mostly girls. And one day, this lady came to speak to our class and said that we could take a civil service test and maybe get a job in Washington, D.C. That was like going to the moon for me. I'm a Holly Pond girl. I've hardly been far from home. But those people who know me can tell you that I'm not afraid of a challenge or to try something new. So I took the test, I passed, and 4 other girls and I headed off to Washington, D.C. We went to Birmingham and got on a train, and that train took us to D.C. And when we got at the train station, these Army vans came and picked us up and took us to these dorms where we would live. I took a bus to work every day. I went to work in a huge, brand, shiny new office building. You may have heard of it. It's called the Pentagon. But when I worked there, it was only 2 years old, so brand spanking new building, and that is a huge building. I'm sure you've seen pictures of it, or maybe you've been there. You know, it has the 5 sides, and it has 5 floors, and then there are 5 rings, corridors, a massive place. Now, today, you call it the Defense Department is housed there, but when I was, during my time, we called it the War Department, and I worked for the Army in personnel. So I was mostly typing and filing letters. And my generation had to grow up really fast. There were teenage boys off fighting the war. But you know, a lot of us, including me, we thought we could do anything we put our mind to. The war was hard on a lot of people. There were some hard years, and this fellow that's going to talk to you next is going to tell you about some hard times. But I'm going to tell you, for me, it was a time of excitement and independence. Y'all, I got to see Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin live. Remember how I said at Holly Pond all the boys were gone? When us girls got to Washington, D.C., we found there were a lot of handsome young men who were eager to take us dancing, to the movies, to the park, to concerts. And back then, when you went to the movies, you saw a newsreel before the movie. So it's kind of like getting a little bit of the nightly news before you saw the movie. I have a lot of I have some pictures of me and my family for you to look at. And also have a lot of interesting items for you to look at when our presentation is over. You may know that items were rationed during the war. That means even if you had enough money, you were limited on how much you could purchase of things like certain food types, clothes, shoes, coffee, cigarettes, gasoline, tires.
Sugar.
Yes, sugar. Yes, lots of different food types. And so I ate at the cafeteria every day. So I would send my extra food stamps home for my family. And then my mama would send me any extra, because I ate in the cafeteria, I didn't need food ration stamps. She would send me the extra clothes and shoes ration stamps because they were at home on the farm, and I was out working in the public, and, you know, wanted to look all nice and everything. So, there were some other, besides getting to see Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, there were other celebrities at my workplace. These generals were like rock stars. General George Marshall, who was the Army Chief of Staff, was in our building. Now, remember, when I was working at the Pentagon, the war in Europe had just ended, but the war in the Pacific was still going on. But that big, famous general from the war in Europe, General Dwight Eisenhower, was in our building. I have a signed picture from General Eisenhower. President Truman came one day, and he spoke. I got to hear him speak in the courtyard of the Pentagon. Little old girl from Holly Pond got to see all this. And Winston Churchill was coming one day, you know, the British Prime Minister, and I was so excited. And I waited over like the steps and the door where I thought he was going to come in, but they took him in a separate door, so I didn't get to see him. One day, this was late summer of 1945. Me and some other girls were out. You're familiar with Arlington Cemetery and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We were out walking around there, and a voice came over a loudspeaker. Now, this was late summer 1945. What do you think that announcement was?
War's over.
The war is over. I'll never forget that moment. And we were, you know, hugging and jumping up and down and cheering, and it was just like you see in the movies and the newsreels. Any soldiers that were nearby, they came up and were hugging and kissing and cheering. It was something else. So I came back home to Holly Pond after the war was over, and remember, I'm coming to you from 1947, and so there's a picture over there of me and my friend Millie. Millie introduced me to her brother, Howard Duke. Y'all, his picture's there, and he's good looking, and he was in the Navy, and he had been off in the, on a ship off of Alaska, the Aleutian Islands. And so I met him, and I was smitten, and we just got married. This year, 1947, we got married in the living room of my parents' house. Now, there's nothing wrong with a big, fancy, expensive wedding, but I can tell you that you don't have to have one to have a long, happy marriage. You can have a simple wedding and have a long, happy marriage. So I'm hoping we're going to have a few kids and stay married a long time. So let me check and make sure there's nothing I forgot to tell you. I think that's mostly what I was going to tell you. I think that's all. Well, I would like to thank y'all for being here, and I also want to tell you all that my 3 children are actually here. Are you Ramona? Okay, y'all. My 3 children are here. This man here, this lady in the red, and this lady in the back. These are my 3 children, and this is my younger sister, Margie, right here. So I am tickled that they are here. So thank you, and now we have another fella that's going to tell you about a young man from this area who fought in Europe. Thank y'all.